Speaking of staying in good health, and huge event yesterday, the Boston Marathon, and we are pleased to be able to talk with a runner from Jupiter, Florida, who's now safely back home after that marathon. Perry Fike, we welcome you to America's Forum on Newsmax TV.
Oh, thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, tell us your experience yesterday in terms of the significance of the marathon and, of course, completing that 26.2-mile course as you did yesterday in Beantown.
This year, I've done a number of times, but this was the most emotional. There were over 1 million fans out on the course. I've never seen that before. And what struck me probably most of all was that as a runner, I know how it's important to runners. It's kind of the holy grail of distance running. But I had no idea it was so embedded in the personality of the city of Boston. People were cheering, and when we finished, they were thanking us for coming and helping them heal. And all I can say is civic pride is not the Boston Strong phrase is not a catchphrase. That's an actual statement of civic pride out of Boston. It was wonderful.
Perry, is there any one incident yesterday that typifies this, an encounter with a Bostonian? Could you relate something to us in a little more than a minute we have left right now?
Yes, I'd say that I'm used to thanking volunteers, but after I finished, and it was hot, and we were falling apart, and all the things that happen after 26.2 miles, but as I was leaving the staging area to limp back to my hotel, there were a number of people, just perfect strangers, who were there at the end of the area for the runners, saying, "Thank you for coming and running. Thank you for coming and helping us out. Thank you for making our city better."
Well, Perry, that is a stirring story. We congratulate you on completing that 26.2 miles and being a part of that marathon that was so historic. Thank you for taking time to check in today with us from Jupiter, Florida. We really do appreciate it. Hearing Perry talk about that reminds me of our days in Congress when a year after the 9/11 attacks, we went to Federal Hall in New York to hold a session of Congress, and New Yorkers came up to us in much the same way that Perry had that experience yesterday. So we appreciate Perry Fike, and we appreciate his perspective and those from Boston. And now it's time to step aside for an American moment here on America's Forum on Newsmax TV. We're coming back.
He had served in 2 wars and flown over 150 combat missions. But in just 60 seconds, this Marine Corps officer would experience a ride like no other. At 9:47 a.m. on the 20th of February, 1962, Lieutenant Colonel John Glenn, Jr. of New Concord, Ohio, found himself sitting on top of an Atlas 6 rocket filled with 600,000 pounds of fuel. At liftoff, 360,000 pounds of thrust hurled the massive rocket and its occupant into space and America's history books. John Glenn became the 4th human being to enter space and the first American to orbit the Earth. For his remarkable heroism, President Kennedy awarded Colonel Glenn NASA's Distinguished Service Medal.
As our knowledge of this universe in which we live increases, may God grant us the wisdom and guidance to use it wisely. Thank you, Colonel.
Glenn went on to become the United States Senator from Ohio, and in 1984 ran for the Democratic presidential nomination, but lost to Walter Mondale. You're watching An American Moment on Newsmax TV.